Online harassment rarely happens in a straight line. Many victims report the same patterns: several days of intense attacks and then weeks of silence. And then it starts again. This cycle is not random and it is not accidental. Psychologically, this pattern mirrors what is long documented in other forms of abuse and coercive control. In psychology, cyclic harm is well recognized. Periods of escalation are followed by periods of calm. Importantly, the calm phase does not mean that the harm is gone. It all functions as part of the same system. In digital harassment, this can look like coordinated attacks, repeated messages, monitoring, or public targeting over a short period of time, followed by an apparent window of withdrawal. But for the brain and the nervous system, the threat does not end when the behavior is paused. One reason this pattern is so destabilizing is intermittent reinforcement. When harm is unpredictable, intense, then absent, the brain cannot establish safety. Instead, it stays awake, waiting for the next escalation. This keeps the nervous system in a state of anticipatory stress. Rather than relaxing during the quiet periods, many victims experienced heightened vigilance, checking notifications, monitoring activity, scanning for signs the harassment will return. The silence itself becomes stressful. Neurologically, repeated digital attacks activate the same stress response systems involved in physical danger. The amygdala signals threat. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline remain elevated. Over time, this can disrupt sleep, concentration, emotional regulation, and memory. Critically, the brain does not distinguish between physical proximity and digital threat when the harm is repeated and personal. Monitoring, intimidation, humiliation, and targeted attacks are processed as ongoing danger. The stop and start nature of the harassment actually strengthens its psychological impact. Each new wave reinforces the expectation that harm can resume at any time. This is why victims are often told, incorrectly, that things should feel better once the attack stops. From a psychological standpoint, safety has not returned, only unpredictability. The cyclic pattern also contributes to shame and self-doubt. Outsiders may see the quiet and assume that the problem is resolved. Victims might question their own reactions, wondering why they still feel anxious when nothing has happened. But psychologically, something is happening. The nervous system is still responding to a learned pattern of threat. Understanding this cycle matters. It explains why advice like just block them or move on often fails. While those steps may stop access, they do not immediately reset a threat-conditioned nervous system. Healing requires predictability, safety, validation, and time, not dismissal. At Voices Unhidden, we emphasize education because naming these patterns removes shame. When people understand that cyclic harassment is a recognized psychological phenomenon, not a personal weakness, recovery becomes possible. The harm is not only in the attacks themselves, it is also in the waiting, the uncertainty, and a repeated disruption in a person's sense of safety. And this harm is real.